For decades, America's Pacific Coast represented the pinnacle of opportunity and prosperity, drawing millions of dreamers and innovators. California, Oregon, and Washington, these three states bordering the Pacific Ocean, embodied the American dream for over 8 decades. However, since 2020, a troubling new phenomenon has emerged. More than 500,000 residents have departed these regions, relocating to other states across the nation. The Pacific Coast story began with California's gold rush of 1848, when hundreds of thousands flocked from around the globe seeking fortune. The Oregon Trail brought farmers to the Northwest, while both world wars introduced manufacturing and employment opportunities to the region. Throughout the 20th century, Hollywood became the global entertainment capital, and Silicon Valley birthed the technological revolution that transformed the world. These factors attracted millions to settle in the area, with the population reaching over 50 million by 2020. Success itself became the problem. As the region grew more prosperous and wealthy, living costs escalated proportionally. Today, expenses have reached levels that make life nearly impossible for many residents. The numbers reveal the magnitude of this crisis clearly. In San Francisco, average home prices reach $1.5 million, while Seattle averages $800,000. Even Portland, once considered the most affordable major city, has seen prices climb to $550,000. The problem extends far beyond housing costs. Gasoline in California costs $4.35 per gallon, compared to $2.66 in Texas. California families spend approximately $300 weekly on groceries, compared to the national average of $270. Those providing vital community services face a genuine crisis. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, and police officers cannot afford to live in the cities where they work. A teacher earning $60,000 annually finds homeownership impossible when houses cost $1.5 million. This situation forces essential workers to live hours away from their jobs, or worse, compels them to leave the region entirely for states where they can live with dignity. The result is severe shortages of teachers, nurses, and firefighters throughout the region. The Pacific Coast developed with heavy reliance on personal vehicles, unlike East Coast cities with sophisticated public transit systems. This automobile dependence means rising fuel costs affect every aspect of residents' lives. Climate change has added another layer of difficulty. Wildfires have become an annual problem lasting months, filling the air with smoke and making breathing difficult. Home insurance against fires has become extremely expensive, with some insurance companies ceasing services in high-risk areas. The COVID pandemic significantly accelerated these problems. When remote work became commonplace, many discovered they no longer needed to live in these expensive cities. They could maintain their jobs and high salaries while relocating to states with much lower living costs. States like Texas, Florida, and Arizona experienced massive influxes of former Pacific Coast residents. These people discovered they could purchase larger, more beautiful homes for half the price while enjoying better quality of life. This mass exodus leaves profound effects on local communities. When families depart, schools lose students, local businesses lose customers, and cities experience reduced tax revenues. This creates a negative cycle where public services deteriorate, driving more people to leave. Children must abandon friends and schools. Families lose their social networks. Communities lose their diversity and vitality. All this carries significant human and social costs that don't appear in economic statistics. Homelessness represents one of the most visible and painful problems in the region. California alone houses over 170,000 homeless individuals, while Washington has more than 25,000 and Oregon exceeds 17,000. When housing costs become extremely high, even employed individuals may find themselves unable to afford rent. This situation creates homeless encampments in city streets, making life more difficult for everyone and driving more people to consider leaving. A political dimension also exists to this problem. The Pacific Coast is known for progressive policies, which attracts some people but alienates others. Individuals with conservative leanings feel uncomfortable and prefer relocating to states like Texas, Florida, and Idaho, where they find political environments more aligned with their values. Local and state governments are attempting to address the problem. Projects exist for building affordable housing, improving public transportation systems, and providing assistance to essential workers. However, these efforts face numerous obstacles, from local opposition to complex bureaucracy. Some cities have experimented with creative solutions like allowing small housing units in residential backyards or establishing community land trusts that maintain affordable housing prices. These experiments show promising results but remain limited in scope. The Pacific Coast's economic problem runs deeper than surface appearances suggest. This isn't merely about rising prices, but structural dysfunction in the local economy. When a single industry like technology dominates an entire region, it creates what economists call a bubble economy. In Silicon Valley, software engineers' salaries can reach $200,000 annually or more. While this appears positive, it creates significant problems. When thousands earn these enormous amounts, they inflate prices for everything in the region, from housing to restaurants to services. The result is that people working normal jobs, teachers, nurses, retail workers, find themselves unable to keep pace with this inflation. A teacher's $60,000 salary was sufficient for dignified living in the 1990s, but today barely covers rent for a small apartment. The housing problem has deep roots extending back decades of misguided policies. In the 1970s and 1980s, cities began implementing strict zoning laws limiting construction. The goal was preserving neighborhood character and preventing overcrowding. However, the long-term results proved catastrophic. When construction is restricted while the number of people wanting to live in an area increases, prices inevitably rise. This represents basic supply and demand economics. The problem is that local governments continued these policies for decades, creating chronic housing shortages. California today needs approximately 3.5 million new housing units to meet demand. However, current construction rates mean this goal won't be achieved for decades. Each year passing without solving this problem sees prices increase further. Young people suffer most from this crisis. Millennials and Generation Z find themselves in impossible situations. Their parents purchased homes in the 1970s and 1980s at reasonable prices, but these young adults face costs tens of times higher. A college graduate securing employment at $70,000 annually, a good salary by national standards, cannot even consider homeownership in the region where they grew up. This creates feelings of frustration and despair, driving many to seek opportunities in other states. The problem doesn't stop at purchasing. Even renting has become a major issue. A one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco can cost $3,500 monthly. This means a person needs a salary of at least $140,000 annually to afford rent without exceeding 30% of income. Rising costs aren't the only problem. Quality of life itself has begun deteriorating in many areas. Traffic congestion has become a daily nightmare. In Los Angeles, people may spend 2 hours or more daily commuting to and from work. Public schools suffer from underfunding and teacher shortages. Healthcare services are overcrowded. Even simple recreational activities like going to the beach have become crowded and expensive. Homeless individuals have become a familiar sight on major city streets, with tent encampments spreading under bridges and in public parks. Numerous solutions have been proposed, but implementation faces significant obstacles. Building more housing appears simple but proves extremely complex in reality. Zoning and construction laws are complicated and expensive, with permit processes potentially taking years. Strong opposition also exists from current residents. Homeowners don't want new housing built in their neighborhoods because it might reduce their property values. Improving public transportation is extremely expensive and requires years for implementation. Economic diversification needs massive investments and long-term policies. Technology that contributed to creating the problem might help solve it. Remote work can reduce the need to live in expensive urban centers. Car and bike-sharing applications can reduce the need for personal vehicle ownership. Modern construction techniques can reduce building costs. This crisis's ramifications extend far beyond the Pacific Coast's geographical boundaries. Companies that relied on local labor find themselves facing skilled worker shortages. Restaurants, stores, and local services struggle to find employees, affecting service quality and raising prices further. Traditional industries like agriculture face special challenges. California produces about 1/3 of America's vegetables and fruits, but farmers struggle to find workers who can afford living in the region. This threatens national food security and raises food prices nationwide. The region famous for innovation and creativity faces risks of losing this competitive advantage. Intellectual and cultural diversity has always driven innovation, but increasing homogenization may limit this capacity. Startups and creative projects need diverse environments to flourish, which may erode with continued outward migration. Rising operational costs make it difficult for startups and small businesses to survive and grow. This creates barriers for new entrepreneurs and limits the economic renewal that was a distinctive feature of the region. Climate change adds another layer of complexity to the problem. Rising sea levels threaten coastal areas, while drought intensity and frequency increase. This affects water supplies and raises energy and agricultural costs. Wildfires are no longer merely seasonal problems, but have become constant threats affecting air quality and public health. Insurance companies raise premiums or stop providing services in high-risk areas, adding to residents' costs. Despite these challenges, some innovative solutions are appearing on the horizon. Cooperative housing projects help reduce costs through shared ownership. Resource-sharing programs enable residents to split service and facility costs. Financial technology offers new financing solutions, such as equity-backed loans and partial real estate ownership. These tools help young people and middle-income families access the real estate market. Some major corporations have begun recognizing their role in the problem and responsibility for solutions. Technology companies are investing billions in affordable housing projects. Some provide direct assistance to employees for home purchases or rent payments. Public-private partnerships show promising results in some areas. These partnerships combine private sector financial resources with government regulatory authority to accelerate development projects. Pacific Coast cities have begun examining international experiences for lessons. Singapore, Vienna, and Amsterdam have developed successful models for social housing and public transportation. These models offer valuable lessons about balancing economic growth with social equity. Japan and South Korea have provided examples of managing high population density while maintaining quality of life. These experiences show that solutions are possible, but they require long-term planning and strong political commitment. The Pacific Coast's future depends on the region's ability to adapt and renew itself. History shows the region has overcome major challenges in the past, but the current challenge may be the greatest because it touches the core of what made the region attractive initially. Success in solving these problems will require fundamental changes in thinking and planning. Instead of focusing solely on economic growth, there must be consideration of sustainable growth benefiting all segments of society. The Pacific Coast has the resources, talents, and history necessary to lead this transformation. The question is whether it has the political and social will to do so before the problem becomes too large to solve.